Hello and welcome to Zenith Workouts. Today we are going to do a workout that is designed to be appropriate for people who know they have or are concerned about low bone density. Full disclaimer, if you have been diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis, please please get cleared, I guess, with your, by your healthcare practitioner, your doctor, your nurse practitioner, a physiotherapist in your area who's knowledgeable about the condition and appropriate exercise, just to see if you are doing the basics correctly before joining in the workout. With osteoporosis or osteopenia, or even just as we age, it's nice. And in this workout, you'll see that we don't do any large flexion of the spine. So we don't curve the spine. We especially don't curve the spine under load, and we don't do any forced twisting of the spine. And if you've been diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis, then those are some things to try to be aware of in your daily living too. So that if you're out in your garden, instead of bending and curving the whole spine as you tug the weeds out, to try to get the hip and pelvic strength and the deep core support so that you can keep more of a neutral spine as you do your work. That sometimes requires somebody to visually see you and guide you at first, if to get that body awareness. And the other thing you'll see when we're working on our belly here, those exercises are excellent for those concerned with the postural changes that go along or often come along with having a lower bone density, to counteract that stoop and that slouch posture, and to give some support and actually reduce the risk of having compression fractures in the spine. So other things that you need to do, of course, are consider medications advised by your physician, or nutrition, and also really they're showing that not just weight-bearing exercises, but really dynamic weight-bearing exercises. So things that really fatigue your legs, so not just walking on a flat, but walking hills or squats or lunges, balance exercises. They're showing that things don't even need to be really low intensity, but you can do interval training with guidance. Go for it. But yeah, this video, please follow it if you've been cleared by a local health practitioner in your area. And yeah, thanks for joining. So we're going to start on hands and knees today. And this position's not always comfortable for everybody, but it is really nice if you can become comfortable weight bearing in the hands and wrists, as well as the shoulders. Old injuries sometimes don't allow us to do this, so lots of the exercises, if you need to, you can be dropping to the forearms, or you can use, you can roll up your mat, use a little bit of support under the hands and wrists. But if you can, try to work on building the strength and the ability to weight bear through the hands. So start by having the fingers evenly spaced on the mat, like even space between all the fingers, and thumbs really out to the side. Hands right under the shoulders. Knees are going to be right under the hips. And you're looking at first to see, can you connect the entire hand to the mat, like all the knuckles, the palm of the hand. If you really feel like you're already heavy in the wrists, then take a moment and just press into the pads of your fingers to try to use those deep flexor muscles instead of having all the weight into the heels of the hand. The elbows are straight, but they're not hyperextended, so have a little softness in them. And the biggest thing that we often do if we're not used to being on hands and knees is we collapse in the chest like this, and the head is really far forward, not in line with the rest of the spine. So our first exercise is just going to be to find that position. When you breathe in, I want you to imagine pressing your rib cage and your breastbone more away from the mat by getting wide across your shoulder blades, not by curving the spine. So keep your nice flat spine and press the chest away from the mat and the head in line with the rest of the spine. When you breathe out, I want you to drop your spine down between your shoulder blades. Draw your shoulder blades in towards your spine. and then reverse. Inhale, press the chest away, and exhale to let the chest move closer to the mat. So this is a pretty small movement. I'm trying to make it big and almost exaggerated, but it's an exercise that you will feel in and around the shoulder blades and chest, especially if you're not used to it. Exhale to drop down, shoulder blades in towards the spine. Breath in, really get wide across the back of your shoulder blades. Press the chest away from the mat. Imagine a big distance as you breathe in between your breastbone and the mat. Definitely hard not to curve the spine as you imagine this at first. But if you have a mirror or you have someone to watch you, see if you can keep that nice spine alignment. This is shoulder blade movement on a nice still spine. Good. And we're going to try to do 2 more. So inhale to press away. Exhale to lower down. Inhale to press away. Exhale to lower down. And then I want you to hold that 3/4 of the way up. So you've got a distance between your chest and mat. You're imagining this distance, maintaining. And we're just going to keep our neutral spine, and we're going to rock a little bit. So as you breathe in, I want you to bring the sit bones back behind you. Keep a good foundation in the hands, strong in the shoulder blades, neutral in your spine. And then I want you to rock forward. And as you rock back into the hands, really receive the weight nicely there. Press the chest away from the mat. And then rock back. And forward. So now we're adding some hip work in with our shoulder blade work. So it's a nice straight rock back and a nice straight rock forward where you keep your foundation in your hands and you really keep that nice broadness in your shoulder blades, broadness in your collarbones, alignment of the head and neck. Good. Now draw your attention to your deep belly here. So as you breathe in, you're just breathing in and expanding. And as you exhale and you come forward, I want you to draw in with the deep belly. A little lift of the pelvic floor to get yourself that stabilization in the low back pelvis. And so if you had my nice hot cup of coffee on your back here, you should be able to keep it there. Don't try it with a hot cup of coffee though. Another disclaimer. And I want you to hold this one. If you need a break in the wrist, take it at any time. But I want you to hold this one now with even weight in the hands and the knees. Take a nice breath in and press stronger into your right arm. And just raise the left arm. It doesn't have to come high off the mat, but if you can, you're going to reach it right out in front. Release it down. And switch sides. Now in my live classes, I'll often get people to put a little ball on their low back. They love it. So that as they switch here, they know that they're really staying nice and still in that low back pelvis area. Press strong through the right arm, raise the left arm forward, and repeat. Good. One more time with each side. Left. Reaches forward, right reaches forward, and rest. Come back onto your knees. Give yourself a moment to just circle the wrists. We're going to come back to that. We're going to do the legs. Same thing, picturing a nice still neutral spine. Strengthen your upper body. The stronger you are in the arms, the easier it's going to be to keep the waist nice and still. If you are using your little ball to guide you, then you're going to keep that nice and still, once again on your low back. So come back onto hands and knees. Check in that you've got that foundation in the hands. You're not collapsed in the chest and head. You're pressing the chest away from the mat. You're broad in the collarbones and the shoulder blades. The head's in line with the rest of the spine. And you're keeping the center of you over the center of the mat. So if you had a string hanging from your tummy button, it would stay nice and still over a spot right below it on the mat. And on your out breath, draw in with the low belly so you can stay nice and steady in the low back pelvis.
Press stronger through the left leg so that right leg can float freely behind you. And you're going to raise it off the mat, just what you can control, right? You don't want that sway of the low back. You don't want a big shift of the pelvis. You really want stillness in the rest of the body. And the leg returns to the mat, and we switch. And for your home practice, I'm going to say you can't progress from here until you can hold that ball still on your back. No, it won't be that hard on you. Use your breath. Draw in with the low belly. That pelvis stays nice and steady. And this is a movement at the hip. As the leg reaches its highest point, you want to really be sure that you've drawn in with that low belly. You've got the chest, that distance from the mat. Stronger in your upper body, easier to control that nice waist and pelvis movement. Good. One more. And then we're going to put them together. If one alone is hard, don't put both together. But if you can, you're going to take the right leg back, the left arm forward. Make sure you have your balance. And we're going to do a repeater here. So you're going to lower the fingertips and the toes to the mat, and you're going to pick them right back up. Fingertips and toes to the mat, and pick them right back up. And once again, if you had that little ball on your low back, it wouldn't roll off. It would stay nice and still. You've got the chest a good distance from the mat. You've got the head in line with the rest of the spine. And you're going to hold this one up. I want you to flex the foot. Reach long out of the bottom of your heel. And then I want you to do a little windmill. You're going to let the leg drift out to the side. And you're going to let the arm drift out just a little bit to match. And then pull them right back into your midline. Keep the knee straight. And we're going to do 5 more. Once again, if you had a string hanging down from your tummy button, it would stay still over a spot below it on the mat. You're strong in that shoulder that's supporting you. The head's in line with the rest of the spine. You're going to hold it here. You're going to lengthen a little more. You're going to press your chest a little more away from the mat. And you're going to release it down. Well done. Reach back with the other leg. Reach forward with the arm. Make sure you've got that chest a good distance from the mat. And you're here. Drop the toes to the mat and the fingertips. Pick them right back up. Drop the toes and the fingertips. Pick them right back up. So nice stillness in the rest of your spine. Use your breath. And imagine you got to squeeze the bum to lift that leg. That's where the strength comes from. And to lift the arm, you're using the shoulder blade and muscles around it. The shoulder shouldn't be hitting your ear. As you come up, you're nice and long in your neck. Hold this one up. Make sure you have that foundation in the front arm. Flex the heel, flex the ankle. Reach long out of the heel. And little windmill drift out to the side. Back into the center, right into the midline. Out to the side. Back into the center. And think of getting longer in each limb. So think of the heel reaching towards the back corner of your room and then right back into the middle. Back corner of the room, right back into the middle. Now I've lost count. I think that was it, but we're going to do one more just to be sure. My classes love me for my inability to count. Hold it here, get longer, and release it down. Perfect. Rock back into a little bit of a shell stretch or child's pose. So you're bending the knees, you're bringing the sit bones back towards the heels. If you need the hands in front for a little bit of support. Here, even though we're a little rounded in the spine, we're not in gravity. So this is a nice way to get flexibility in your low back with some support in the upper body. To get that movement that your spine craves without a lot of force through it, right? And let's just stay here and take a few deep breaths. And really think when you breathe in about that width, about that expansion, about spreading the ribs open, especially in the back of the rib cage, near the low back. You can picture your breath going right to your low spine or right into the pelvis. It's our relative rest pose. Okay. And then we're going to come down onto our bellies. And this is the series that's really beneficial for your posture. And at first, we're just going to do the legs. So if you're comfortable with the hands folded under the forehead, the head can just rest like that. If you have an issue with the shoulder, one arm can be there, or you can even put just a little pillow there so your nose isn't flat into the mat. And I want you to feel where your pelvis is on the mat. So feel, do you have your pubic bone on the mat or a hip pointer, both hip pointers maybe you have some symmetry. We don't all. And that's where you're going to keep your pelvis while you do the exercises, because we're going to raise the legs, we're going to raise the arms, and what you want is stillness through that low back pelvis area while you do the motions. So take your breath in to prepare. And when you breathe out, draw in with the low belly. Really feel the pubic bone stay rooted to the mat. Squeeze your right bum cheek. And raise the right leg, just keeping it straight. And release it down. And then switch sides. Same thing, you're drawing in with the low belly, squeezing the left bum cheek, and raising the left leg. And this is really what Pilates, physio Pilates, clinical Pilates is really about, is taking it from having to think about each and every step. So breathe in, breathe out, draw in the low belly, squeeze the left bum cheek, raise the left leg, to having it be automatic so that you can speed it up and still keep that nice form. And if you really want to test yourself at home here, take the hands and place them underneath your hip pointers. Because as you raise one leg, the pressure shouldn't really change there. What you're looking for is for this movement to come from your hip joint, which is lower down, not from your pelvis and low back. And this is something that for some people is very easy, and for other people it's such a hard exercise to master. So try to be honest with yourself here, and wherever you feel, whatever pressure you feel in each hand, when both legs are down, when you raise the leg, try to keep it like that. Good. One last one each side. And beautiful. Perfect. Legs can relax now. Let's bring the hands from the forehead to each side of your mat. So the forearms are just laying on the mat. Your forehead and nose are going to be lovingly squished down into the mat for a second. Again, your pelvis stays nice and still. So take a breath in. Breathe out. Draw in the low belly. And I want you to feel like you raise the forehead away from the mat first, then your nose, then your mouth. So you're slowly peeling off the mat to come up. You're going to keep your eyes down towards like the front edge of your mat or just underneath you, depending on how flexible you are. And you're going to think of getting taller out of the crown of your head towards the front of your room, or if you're a little more flexible, maybe towards the seam between your ceiling and the wall. Or if you're really flexible, you might aim to eventually get your, the top of your head towards the ceiling. Most of us don't have that though. So be honest with yourself. You don't want this movement coming in your low back. You want it to stop basically at your low ribs or your bra line. And you're working in that upper back to get the extension. So once you're up here, and let's say we're here, imagine that you keep the shoulder blades drawn down away from your ears and a little bit back and together. And you're going to let your spine, that that area of your spine between the shoulder blades, drop down between, like sink down between your shoulder blades. So your breastbone is pulling forward a little bit and you're getting that extension. And then you're going to release it down. And we're going to do that all again, not so slow. Nice breath in. Exhale to come up. Sink the spine, right in between the shoulder blades. Pull the breastbone forward and release it down. Common cheats here are that we're stiff in the upper back, so we just do it all at the neck. If your neck starts to hurt, that might be what you're doing. Don't do that. Or once we get up, we lift more in our low back instead of doing it at our mid back. So just watch for those two things. And we'll do 3 more like this, where you just peel up, sink the breastbone, try to get that extension, release it down. Exhale to come up. And to help you do this, you can think of that low belly drawing in. You can think of the tailbone tucking down a little bit towards the mat. You can think of squeezing the inner thighs in together a little bit, lightly squeezing the bum so that you get that length in the upper body while the low body stays still. Okay. On the next one, we're going to hold it up. Good. And then without losing your height, that's your key. Think of the height at the base of your throat, and you're going to keep that as we do the next bit of exercise. On your exhale, float the right arm and reach it forward. And bring it back in. And on your next exhale, float the left arm, reach it forward, and pull it back in. Really looking to keep that length in your spine. Think of keeping the crown of your head reaching towards the front of the room. And you should feel steady in the low body, steady in your low ribs. If alternating is hard, then stay with that as we repeat, or we'll try to do both arms together. Lower down for a quick break. Take a breath in. Stabilize again, find that neutral pelvis. You should be comfortable in your spine. You don't have to be high to get the benefits here. I do try to exaggerate a little bit, but you could literally be floating here. That's still good. Coming up. All right, staying with one arm or going to both. On your out breath, float both arms off the mat. You're going to draw your elbows back towards you. Forearms are parallel. And then you're going to slide them forward. Exhale. Keep your height as the arms go forward. They don't have to come right out in front, or maybe you can do that. Depends on your shoulder flexibility and what's available in your spine. And bring them back in. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. We're going to try to do 2 more. You should be feeling this in your upper and mid back, between the shoulder blades, deep in your core. I said 2 more. We're going to do 3. Perfect. Replace the hands to the mat. See if you can lift a little bit higher. Get a little bit longer. And then release it down. Lovely. Bring the hands underneath your chest, or underneath your rib cage, shoulders. We're going to bend your knees, bend our knees. And you're going to imagine as you press back, we're going to press back to our little shell stretch, child's pose. You're going to imagine your breastbone and your thighs leaving the mat at the same time. So on your out breath, draw in with that low belly, shoulders down away from the ears, press into the hands strongly, and rock back into a lovely shell stretch child's pose. Leave the hands in front if that feels good. Take your time to get there, where we've just been in extension. Let the low back soften, the hips soften. And use that breath to really get that expansion low in the rib cage. Feel like you breathe down into your low back. Breathe into your pelvis. Good. Coming up to kneel. And we're going to come onto our sides and do a little bit of hip work. So when you come onto your side, we're going to bring our knees right up in front of our hips. So you have a 90-degree angle between your spine and your thighs, and the feet towards the forward edge of your mat. So you've got a 90-degree bend at the knee too. If you're comfortable, the bottom arm's your pillow, or with elbow bent, or grab a little pillow if you need to. And I want you right away to think of a little space between your waist and mat. You're going to work to keep that. So like just enough to drive one of those little micro cars or mini cars underneath your waist. If you take a quick glance at your knees, they should be the same length unless you have a leg length difference. If one's shorter, then you're in sort of a cozy, like slouchy position in the waist and pelvis rather than being in this nice stacked position. Let's take the top arm up towards the ceiling, just for nice stillness, or you can have it on the pelvis if that's more comfortable. And then don't look at your knees, even though it's tempting. Look right out in front. We're going to be raising the top leg, and you want to think of initiating with the knee. So on your out breath, first one, we're going to leave the feet together, and just raise the knee. Nice stillness in the rest of the body, and lower it back down. And then again, with just the knee. So that's the movement you want to start with, although we're going to raise the whole leg. So on your next out breath, start with the knee, let the foot come along for the ride, but the knee's always that little bit higher than the foot, or at least parallel, and lower it back down. Exhale to raise, and inhale to lower back down. Exhale to raise, and inhale to lower back down. Thinking of keeping that space between waist and mat. If you had the back of your pelvis up against a wall behind you, you wouldn't roll back at all into that wall. You'd stay nice and stacked. And for me, to do that, I have to think of lengthening out of the thigh. So really, I try to reach the knee for something just beyond the kneecap. And that helps me stay in that nice stacked position. Good. For 3. For 2. For 1. Hold it here. Take a nice breath in. And on your out breath, you're going to see if that knee can go just a little bit higher. For 5. For 4. For 3. For 2. For 1. And release it down. Good. Perfect. You're going to leave that, we're going to straighten out the legs. Sorry. My bad. Again, that little space between waist and mat. And if you need the hand on the mat for a little bit of support, you can have it there, just lightly with the fingertips, or try to bring it back up to the ceiling. And we're just going to raise that top leg. That top leg's going to lift, but before you lift it, think of maintaining that little space between waist and mat, and think of that top leg getting a little bit longer. Think of reaching those toes a little longer, raise it up, flex the foot, and lower back down. So point and raise, and flex it down. And you're not looking at your feet, but if you did, the top foot would stay over the bottom one. So common cheat that we do is we let that leg come forward. Oh, and then all of a sudden, look how high we can come. Wow, we're amazing. No, you're going to keep that top leg right over the bottom leg so that you're really doing this all at the hip. And you should feel it almost a little behind the bony part of the hip. Good. You're going to hold this one up. We're going to do 4 circles. They're going to be small, but they're right from the hip. So the waist stays nice and still. That arm in the air should stay nice and still. See the arm moving. You're definitely not being steady with the rib cage, pelvis, waist area. After your 4th one, reverse the circle. For 4, for 3, for 2, and for 1. Release that leg down just so it's about maybe 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches above that bottom one. We're going to bring the bottom leg to meet the top leg. You're maintaining your space between waist and mat though. So you have on your out breath, raise and lower.
raise, and lower. You can do it. Raise and lower. We're going for 6 more. 6. Gotta bend my knee there. 5, 4, 3. Use that inner thigh. Maintain that lowest rib lifted off the mat. Hold this last one. Use the bottom leg to support the top leg, lift a little bit higher, and release it down. Well done. We're gonna do the other side. 2 sides. Twice the work. So, knees bent to start with, right out in front of the hips. Knees are the same length, little space between waist and mat. Not looking at your knees, and the feet out towards the forward edge of the mat. Top arm up towards the sky. On your out breath, for the first 2, just lifting the knee, and lower, and lower. And then let the foot come along for the ride, but it always stays that little bit lower than the knee, and release, and release. Nice. So think about reaching that knee just a little bit forward so that you're long in that thigh, you're stacked in the pelvis. For 3, for 2, and for 1. Hold this one up, take your breath in, and see if you can pulse that knee a little bit higher without moving anything in that waist or pelvis. For 5, for 4, for 3, for 2, for 1, and release it down. Gorgeous. Straighten out the legs. Once again, little space between waist and mat. Nice alignment. Pelvis is stacked. Heels should be the same length. Good. Before you raise the top leg, think of reaching it a little longer than the bottom one. And then raise that top leg at the peak, flex, and lower it down. Heels connect. Point and raise. Flex it down. Point and raise. And flex it down. Good job. So if you're an old salt at this, work on being smooth with it. Smooth in your transition. More length in that top side of the body. Make sure you're coming up right to your height without involving the waist. This is the hip doing this motion. Good, and you're gonna get holding this last one. We're gonna circle for 4, and you're staying steady in that arm that's reaching towards the sky, unless you need it for a little bit of support on the mat, but if you do choose to do that, then try to be light in your fingers. Don't rely a lot on that arm. Just take the support that you do need. After your 4th one, reverse. Good. So we're circle and circle. And you're still in that waist, you're still in the pelvis. Use your out breath where you need it for your 4th circle. Good. And then you're going to hold it. You're going to lower that leg, that top leg. And then on your out breath, use that bottom leg, inner thigh, to come up, meet the top leg, and lower. Lift. And lower. We all have one side that's a little more difficult. We usually start with our good side too. So feel that you use that inner thigh and feel that you maintain that little space between waist and mat. Good. We've got 3. Actually, no, I think we've got 4 more. 3, 2. And you're going to hold your last one. Really press that bottom leg into the top leg. Lengthen in your whole body. Breathe in and release it down. Gorgeous. Okay, coming onto your back, just a little bit of deep ab work here before we're done. If you have a diagnosis of osteopenia or osteoporosis, you're definitely not including curl-ups, crunches into your routine, please. That is a lot of flexion and compression forces through the spine. What you can do is you can work the limbs with that nice spine in neutral, either flat on the mat or sometimes with a little mini stability ball. You'll see that in our other workouts underneath the pelvis. And that gets you that nice ab strength without putting the spine in a bit of a precarious position. So let's take a moment and just find that neutral low back pelvis. So you've got your space between low back and mat. If we're talking neutral pelvis, we've got our hip pointers and our pubic bone in that nice horizontal line.
And actually, let's keep the hands there for our first little bit today. Even if you're an old salt, let's go back to basics. Take a breath in. And on your out breath, just draw in with the low belly. And also up with the pelvic floor really helps. Use that out breath. Bring the leg up to tabletop. See if that pelvis stays nice and still. And release it down. And exhale to switch. And release. I really like this work on a mini ball. I just wanted to give a workout where you didn't need a prop at home. If you're using just the mat, then feel where your pelvis is on the back of the mat and make sure it feels like it's glued there, it's rooted there through this series. If you want to, you can use the mini stability ball, partially deflated through this whole last few exercises. Good. Perfect. So nice warm up. The hands can go at your sides now. And we're going to try to combine some things. So let's take the arms, float them up to the ceiling, shoulders away from the ears, broad in those collarbones. Breath in to prepare. Out breath, draw in that low belly, keep that spine in neutral, nice and steady. Let the right leg go out to the side, just what you can control, and let the left arm counter it. So getting a little bit of work through the obliques, but there's no movement in your center waist. Bring it back in. And we'll switch. Left leg, right arm. A little right leg, right and left troubled. Just remember, opposite leg, opposite arm. Left leg, right arm. Use your out breath. And think of your center, staying nice and centered. So your nose, your breastbone, your tummy button, your center of your pelvis. One more with the right. And the left. Perfect. Bring one leg up to tabletop. And do single leg straightening now. Still looking for that stillness in the pelvis, low back, low rib cage. So same breath, in to prepare, exhale. Let's flex the foot, straighten the leg, lowering what you can control and letting those arms go overhead. And pull it back in with strength, and we'll repeat. Draw in that low belly to counter any movement in the pelvis, and only lower the leg what you can control. Like maybe it just gets to there, that's fine. Or omit the arms and focus just on the leg. This is what you can do to work up to the full exercise. Beautiful. Pull it in and lower that leg. Let's change sides. So other leg comes to tabletop, and we'll just do that same repeater. Exhale, flex the foot. Reach out, lower it what you can control, and point and bring it back in. Both arms overhead. Watch that low rib cage. And by that I just mean as the arms go overhead, you don't want those low ribs popping up towards the ceiling. You don't want more space coming under the back of your rib cage, like that. You really want those low ribs to stay almost knitted down to the pelvis so that you have stillness through the low ribs, the waist, the back, the pelvis. I lost count. Big surprise. Should we do one more? Good. And release it down. Good. Let's bring the hands into our sides. Take a nice breath in. Stretch out nice and long. And I don't ever leave you here in my classes, but I'm going to leave you here today. And I just want you to lay here and appreciate the wonderfulness, the wisdom of laying flat on your back. If you are unable to lay flat on your back, I would say that's not uncommon, but you'd like to work up to being able to do it if possible.
If you can't, don't worry. You can bend the knees a little bit, or you could have a small foam pad or pillow under the head. But if you can, just lay and melt into the mat. See if you could soften more through the hips and pelvis, the low back. See if you can get a little more of the spine connected to the mat. Sometimes we're hunched in the upper back and we tend to lie like this. See if you can, soften in the throat. See if you can open in the collarbones. And then just take some breaths like we practice. Breath in to expand, to widen, and on your out breath, that idea of things narrowing. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.